Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into a really fascinating question, one that kind of messes with how we think about society. What happens to the whole idea of social class when it seems like everyone's getting richer?
So let's just start with a little thought experiment. Picture it. A factory worker and their manager, they drive the same car, maybe live on the same suburban street. So are they in the same social class? Seems simple, right? But this very question, well, it kicks off a huge, groundbreaking study decades ago, and it gets right to the heart of what we even mean by class.
To really get why this was such a massive deal, we have to rewind the clock, all the way back to the 1960s. Britain was riding high on this huge post-war economic boom, and for the very first time, tons of working-class families actually had money to spend. This new wealth started raising some pretty revolutionary questions about the very fabric of society.
And that's when this powerful new theory popped up. It was called the embourgeoisement thesis. Now, the big idea here was pretty radical. As working-class folks got richer, they would basically just become middle class. It was thought that their values, their politics, their whole way of life would start to blend together, and those old, rigid class lines would just sort of dissolve.
Okay, so was this actually happening? Well, a team of sociologists led by a guy named John Goldthorpe decided they needed to find out. They went straight to the heart of this new prosperity, a Vauxhall car factory in a town called Luton, to see if these newly affluent workers were really leaving their working-class roots in the dust.
So what did they find? Well, when they first looked around, the evidence for this whole class-blurring idea seemed to be absolutely everywhere. It really painted a picture of a society that was changing, and man, was it changing fast.
I mean, the signs were just impossible to ignore. These workers were earning higher, more stable wages. They were buying their own homes out in the suburbs. Their houses were filling up with all the latest stuff. Cars, TVs, things that used to be just for the middle class. They were going on vacation, eating out. And they had these huge dreams for their kids' education. Even their politics started to look different, shifting away from the old-school collective union mindset to a more individual outlook.
You can really see the story that was taking shape here. It looked like this perfect step-by-step journey, right? First, you get more money, then you get a nice house. That leads to a new consumer lifestyle, and boom, you adopt middle-class values. It looked like the embourgeoisement thesis was totally right.
But, in sociology, things are almost never that simple. And sure enough, it wasn't long before other thinkers started to chime in, arguing that, hey, maybe this picture is a little incomplete. Maybe they missed some really crucial pieces of the puzzle.
And the critics were quick to point out some pretty big potential blind spots. For one, the study only looked at skilled, well-paid workers in a booming industry. What about, the rest of the working class? They also said the study focused way too much on economic stuff, like what people buy, and totally ignored the deep cultural ties, the social networks, the community bonds that really glue a social class together. The question became, just because you own a nice car, does that really erase your identity? And all of this debate really boiled down to one huge question. Was this whole affluent worker thing just a temporary blip? Was it simply a product of the very unique, booming economy of the post-war years? Or was it a real, permanent shift in how society was structured?
Okay, so this is where it all comes back to us, right now. What can a 60-year-old study possibly tell us about social class today? Because let's be honest, that world of stable, high-paying factory jobs has been replaced by something completely different.
And this table just lays it all out so clearly. That stability and those rising wages of the 60s, yeah, that's given way to the insecurity of the gig economy. And how we even think about class has totally changed. We've gone from looking almost exclusively at money to understanding intersectionality, how class gets tangled up with race, gender, and all these other factors. The result is that class identity today feels way more fragmented, way more fluid than it ever did back then.
Now, don't get me wrong. The Affluent Worker study is still a huge landmark. It proved, without a doubt, that class isn't some fixed thing. It can be totally transformed by the economy. But maybe its most powerful lesson for us today is that figuring out someone's class is a lot more complicated than just looking at their paycheck or what kind of car they drive.
Which leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. This study showed us that the boundaries of class can shift, they can change, they can even fade away. So the real question for us right now is this. As all those old lines keep blurring, what are the new lines, the perhaps invisible lines, of class and inequality that are being drawn in our society today?